today?
Good. How are you, Rebecca?
I'm well. Thanks for joining. So excited to talk today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, this is going to be great. So for those of you that don't know Deanna, she's a great friend of mine. We actually met serving on a board in Nashville. It's called Women in Technology in Tennessee. And she was a phenomenal leader for that group. I have to say that's when I really started to become a fan of Deanna's and just really see her passion for retail and her passion for technology and really developing the next generation of female leaders. So with that, Deanna, will you tell us a little bit more about your background and how you got to where you are today?
So, I started my career actually in retail technology. So, working for a company called Island Pacific Systems, which some of you will know. The thing that was great about that experience is that the owner of the business at the time and VPs were all insistent that people have a good understanding of the retail business, with the presumption that you can't automate what you don't understand. Right. So it was really important to become a student of business. And in fact, all of the associates with IP spent time doing demos internally, making sure we understood how the software could be configured and how it worked and how it could apply to multiple types of retailers. And that took me to Deloitte Consulting, to your point, where I continued to work with clients that were in the retail industry, but also had the chance to work with some clients that were multi-level marketing companies, B2B, B2B2C companies. So really gained some good exposure to small startup. It was at the time of the dot-com boom back then. And so worked with some really fun startups, but I also worked with some large multinational companies. Deloitte took me to work for a company called Hot Topic. They are still all about pop culture and music. And they were one of my first clients at Deloitte and one of my last. So I went to work with Topic as a director of project management. And my first project was actually to help build a distribution center in Laverne, Tennessee. So I found myself out in the Nashville area working with Hot Topic. It was great, a lot of fun. We built quite a bit there. I moved into other areas of the business at Hot Topic as well. So I guess my lesson there is be open to opportunities that presents itself. You don't gain success where you don't take risks. And where most concerned is probably where you have opportunity to grow the most. So I found that a lot of fun. From there, I moved over to Ascena Retail Group, where I had the chance to work with a number of great brands and the chance to work on a number of really fun, challenging initiatives. There, I was responsible for IT for the Lane Bryant, Catherine's, and Justice brands. And so it was a great opportunity to really lead at that level. And while I was in Nashville, I got a phone call from a woman who I worked with before, was the CEO at Lane Bryant and became the CEO of J.Jill. And she called and initially wasn't really willing to move again. But as I got to know her more and I got to know her leadership team and her board, ultimately, I realized that I really would like to go back to work with her again. And at J.Jill, I'm working with others that I've worked with in the past in retail, and it's been a great experience. So I will say the pandemic has been challenging for everybody. But fortunately, we were able to roll out Microsoft Office 365 and Teams. So the move from physical meetings to digital meetings happened pretty seamlessly. It was necessary, obviously, but pretty seamlessly. So I think the thing I've learned in my career is it's important not to drop relationships. It's important to purposely foster them over time, meaning reaching out to people, checking in, seeing how they're doing, seeing if there's anything you can do to help, and just generally helping to promote those people that you have relationships with. I think it's important.
Well, and I'm a huge fan of the brand. Are you wearing J.Jill today as well?
Why, yes, I am.
Good. Repping the brand. I like it. So Deanna, you talked about how networking is very important to you. You really are intentional about where you spend time around that. Specifically, WIT and NRF are a couple organizations I know you've had a lot of involvement with. Can you tell me a little bit about those organizations and what they've meant to your career?
Absolutely. So I'll start with WIT because obviously that's where I met you. I have never seen such an amazing group of women come together to unequivocally support each other and support each other's connectivity and growth. WIT is an organization, Women in Technology Tennessee, that was born out of Women in Technology, then deviated and really focused on the Nashville area. And the thing that I was so impressed with Nashville about is both WIT and the National Technology Council both present opportunities for people to network and meet one another. And most importantly, develop one another and develop yourselves. I think the thing that really struck me is that I'm continually curious about what's out there, what's possible, and being able to meet so many senior executives and junior individual contributors too was just such an amazing experience. I think Nashville does that incredibly well. The National Retail Federation is a great group. It's a very large organization, obviously. And I'm on the NRF CIO Council now, but had been involved with NRF for years, dating back to my Island Pacific days. The thing about NRF, it's a little bit like with WIT, it's that it's an opportunity to meet a number of really intelligent, like-minded people. People who understand the retail industry, the retail technology, emerging trends, consumer behavior, and really can take that to heart to drive for their companies what the technology strategy and the customer engagement strategy should look like. I believe strongly in children's charities, and I'm very passionate about being involved with them. So back in Southern California, I was real involved with a group called Olive Crest and Lighthouse Guild. I was actually president of a fundraising arm. And Olive Crest provides it's really homes and adoption and foster services for at-risk children. I took that passion for children's charities into the Columbus area as well, working with a couple of organizations, including Nationwide Children's Hospital, and raised some money for that organization as well. So I think the other piece, in addition to developing your professional path and developing your network, is also to give back. I think that's really important and brings a well-rounding to a professional.
That's awesome. Do you look for that when you're hiring folks too?
I do. Yeah. I like to invest in people that invest in themselves and others. And I look for that level of energy that can, get involved in a number of different things, but still maintain a laser focus on their own professional development and contribution to the organization. So absolutely. And I also look for that value in companies for which I work. So I think it's important, as you look at companies, you're evaluating them yourself to see, do they give back? Are they participating in the community in some way, shape, or form? And if so, how? And are there opportunities to get involved? So I think that's really important too.
Well, Deanna, now I want to talk a little bit more about your current role at J.Jill. I know you're also Chief Digital Officer, multiple responsibilities. So I want to hear a little bit more from you, what falls under your purview right now? And then what are you guys doing to advance digital transformation specifically within your industry?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that the Chief Information and Digital Officer roles coming together makes a lot of sense, because ultimately what CIOs are accountable for is not only ensuring the stability of the environment that they are responsible for, but also driving that digital change. And what I'm finding is that companies define digital change differently from organization to organization, right? For some, like many retailers, it's about implementing more on the commerce side, integrating customers, really personalizing the experience, both online and in the store. For others, it's really about automating the fulfillment options, right? So whether you buy online, pick up in store, or you ship from store, or you ship to store, a lot of companies really are looking at digitizing the supply chain is very important. With the pandemic, that's been particularly important, and I think it's escalated certain priorities for companies that found inventory stranded in stores and didn't have an opportunity to clear them from stores to make them available online. I think the other component for us for digitization is that it really is the opportunity to merge the channels and understand more about a customer, one view of her, one view of inventory, and really optimize the experience all along the supply chain.
That's great. So how is security, and specifically data security, staying a top priority with you?
Data security is very important. Of course, we're a public company, so have both security and compliance requirements that we need to live up to. For us, as I mentioned, when I came on board, I did an inventory of security tool sets and service providers. We had an outsourced SOC, and we had a number of tools that were redundant and tools that weren't working well enough. So our email service provider, for example, wasn't really even configured to the degree that it needed to be. So we stepped back, brought on board a director of IT security, and put that gap analysis together, identifying where we had those redundancies and where we had gaps. And I'll give you an example of a gap. So our security operations center, the outsourced one, was monitoring only 50 endpoints. We have over 2,800 endpoints in our ecosystem that needed to be monitored, right? And it was a service, right? It was security, a SOC basically as a service. I discovered that the security as a service really was a web portal that my team had to go to look up the reports. It wasn't even pushing information out to us. So we decided we'd make that change, and we consolidated about 6 or 7 different applications into 2 service providers. One of whom is really managing the security of the ecosystem. We have monitoring out in stores now, monitoring of the networks. We outsourced our store network service provider, so centralized on that and improved security and monitoring through the service provider. So now we're really doubling down on our own internal service, but between the SOC and the network service provider. So that's been good.
And then that, on the long run, helps you actually move faster, right?
It does, yes, absolutely. Because you're not then, if I say we consolidated 6 service providers into 1 or 2, I'm not now dealing with 6 QBRs and 6 management teams to work with. I'm dealing with 2 of them, 2 very sophisticated ones. So yes, it helps you move faster, and I think it helps you be more efficient with the way that you manage your time and your team's time.
So Deanna, interesting topic that's forefront of everyone's mind right now is how COVID's affecting retail. Can you give us a little overview of what that's looked like at J.Jill and how you reacted to that?
Specialty apparel has been particularly challenged just because we were not essential initially. We did have to shutter all our stores, and those stores remained closed for quite a while. So I talked a little earlier about how associate management and associate interaction's been strong, but we've had challenges just with people being able to be comfortable in our stores, and our associates being comfortable being there too. Our client has a very tight relationship with her associates, and our associates have great relationships with their clients to the degree that when we had to go and, work from home, a lot of our associates reached out to their best clients, took home their Microsoft Surface devices, and co-shopped with them, introduced them to new floor sets, introduced them to new product. They thought really creatively about how they were going to reach their customer and how they engaged with her. And our client is special. In some cases, we're the only people that she sees during the day now and then. Sometimes she lives on her own, whether it be on her own, potentially in a home too. And so we started calling our customers just to check in on them and see how they were doing. They responded really well to that. So our store associate group, field associate group has just done a phenomenal job in being creative. We're getting to the point now where we're booking stylist appointments and holding FaceTime live series and things like that. So, they've been extremely creative.
Great. And that speaks a lot for the brand that you guys, in a very trying situation, actually became more high touch and went to the personal level of your consumer. Like, that is going to make them that much more committed to the brand long term. And I think speaks a lot for the vision of J.Jill as a longstanding company that's going to make an impact.
That's great. Thank you.
So Deanna, I know you pretty well, but for those who are just getting to know you, I would love for you to talk a little bit about your running background. I know you've been very committed to that sport, and it's really helped you be an impactful executive and a top performer. Can you talk a little bit about what that routine looks like, and again, how it's influenced you in positive career moves?
Sure. I've been running. My mother used to get us out and make us run. So I've been running for a long time. And I love it. It's not only, I think, physically beneficial, but also mentally beneficial. So what does that look like? I'm usually up at 5:30. I get out, go on a run, regardless of the weather. So that's what they make yak tracks for. That's what they make coats and gloves and hats for during the winter. I find I go anywhere from 3 to 6, 7 miles. I've run a few marathons. And so when I'm training, obviously that's a little different. That cadence fits more with a marathon training cadence with longer runs and tapering. I think it's important to be physically fit as well as mentally fit. And I think the two combined is really powerful. I find that if I've had a tough day, or if I am feeling stressed about something, I'll get out, go on a run, and I'll come back in just such a better mood. so much so that my family and friends, if they know me well, will ask me, "Did you run today?" Or maybe you should. Yeah. So I just think it's important. And it's a great way to get out and see new cities and towns and, commune with nature, so to speak. It's great.
So Deanna, you've alluded a little bit to principles that you live by in business, but I want to hear from you specifically. What is that core principle that you really look to to abide in every decision you make throughout business?
I would say that a core principle fundamentally as I make decisions in business is to make sure that I understand the real impetus behind the decision, right? So and I talked about this earlier when I was talking about consulting a little bit, right? We may, as a human population and as executives, say, well, gosh, I need to solve this problem. But I think the critical thinking and really asking, if you call it the 5 whys or whatnot, okay, so what is the problem we're trying to solve and why is it so difficult and why is that so difficult? So to really get to the root of a problem, I think that's what's important. And I think that in doing that, just being honest and respectful with myself and with others is critical because you carve that path and those relationships and that trust is important to maintain. So I would say it's critical thinking. I would say it's relationship development and trust. So integrity. And I think that's true personally too.
Well, Deanna, this was so much fun today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Rebecca. This was great. I really appreciate the questions and the reflection. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, have a great rest of your week, and I can't wait to see you in person soon.
You too. Sounds good.